Like it or not, we now live in a world where The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 will not be out until 2023. The delay sent shockwaves across the gaming industry today, although it feels like most people were already planning for it. The game will be out in about a year's time, and I'm sure it will be great, but why was it delayed? I think that there is something underneath the surface here that not a lot of people are talking about, and that is very interesting, and that builds a very different picture and a very different future for Nintendo. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Make sure to hit that like button if you're still excited for the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I know I am, bummed, but still very hopeful. And let me know in the comments down below what you think the reason is, and if you are agreeing with what I'm about to tell you. Oh, and my friends, if you need something to boost your spirits after the sad Zelda delay, check out Disney EMOJI BLITZ, because this game is pure bliss. It's all happy all the time with Disney, Star Wars, Pixar characters, and a ton of strategic, awesome Match 3 gameplay. Plus, I'm giving away 3 $20 Amazon gift cards so you can get some fun stuff for yourself. All you gotta do is download the game using my link in the description down below, reach level 10, which is super easy, and then send me a pic of your progress and we'll pick the winners very soon. Now, a lot of people instantly assume that this game is delayed due to the pandemic and due to development. Like, hey, they just need more time. That's usually the cause for most delays. They just can't get the game where it needs to be. Whether it's bugs or features or they're waiting for finishing touches, they need more time. That's totally plausible and very, very possible, but I don't think that's the main reason here. I definitely could see Nintendo losing a lot of intended development hours due to the pandemic, and they are behind the 8 ball, but I think there's more. Some have suggested that the year is jam-packed, and now that they have Pokemon Gen 9 and we've already had such a stellar first half of the year, Nintendo doesn't need to use the game, so why not just let it coast carefully into the future? If Nintendo had the opportunity to stick to their schedule, appease their investors, and honor their 2022 date, they would. I think there's more to that still. So that leaves us with a reason why that doesn't involve development really at all, but it involves developing for something new. I'm gonna go on record and say that I believe the reason The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is delayed, the main reason, the big one, is to prepare it to line up with new hardware. Yes, I think The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 will launch on Switch and on Switch something. Switch Pro, Switch 4K, Switch 2. I think March 2023 is when Nintendo will crest over into the next step for Switch. Whether that's a true successor or just a big half step, I'm not going to predict, but I think it lines up. And I have evidence to back this up, all right? It seems a little schemy that Nintendo would purposefully save Zelda for the next Switch, but at the same time, it's their biggest thing. And they do have a big lineup this year with Pokemon coming and perhaps even more. I bet there's another game that will get announced to take up one of those October, November, December slots. I don't think Xenoblade and Bayonetta and Pokemon Gen 9 is all we're gonna get from Nintendo. But if you have an opportunity to kind of save things, to kind of wait, and you can launch in a really large way and really polish up the game, it's all of it coming together at once. Now, you might remember back in 2021, Bloomberg released a report in September stating that they had talked to 11 developers who had Switch 4K development units. They said this thing is still happening, even after the whole Pro debacle where it was actually OLED and not Pro. Bloomberg insisted that this was still happening, and Zynga, among others, had the dev kit and were working on 4K games targeting a late 2022 timeframe. And instantly Zynga said, no, not true. And Nintendo said, absolutely not. The only Switch we're releasing is the Switch OLED. We don't got that going on. But of course, Nintendo PR has to say that. They can't admit like, oops, we're secretly working on something, don't buy the OLED. And then in October, a very notable and reliable leaker, Nate Drake, made a podcast discussing his sources in line with Bloomberg sources, stating that he had heard the next Nintendo Switch, which he dubbed the Nintendo Switch 4K, because he wasn't sure if it was a Switch Pro or a Switch 2, would be hitting in the 6-month window between the end of 2022 and Q1 2023.
As for a release window, as Bloomberg had noted, it appeared that it would be in the second half of 2022. Based on conversations I have had, the second half of 2022 is definitely a time window that publishers are gearing up their software releases for. But the caveat is there is the possibility it does release anytime between late 2022 and Q1 of 2023. That is the window I was given.
And where is Breath of the Wild 2 falling? Q1 2023. Now, could it have hit in 2022? It maybe could have. Maybe the game would have even been ready, but what if the hardware is not ready? And by that, I mean the chip shortage. It's rumored that the reason Nintendo opted to go OLED instead of Pro sooner is because they didn't have the parts for it due to the global shortages caused by the pandemic. And what if Nintendo knows, based on their production line, that they cannot get enough Switch 4Ks ready by this holiday season, and they're going to need into 2023. And hey, the launch of the original Switch worked so well in March, and it worked so well with Zelda. Why not capitalize on a huge year with Splatoon and Pokemon, Kirby and Pokemon again, and then carry into the next thing with Zelda? For all the talk about the Switch lasting a decade, it can still do that with a next Switch. And I think the lines between true successor and just iteration are going to be blurred with whatever Nintendo drops next. This Switch 4K, Switch Pro, Switch 2, it'll be the next thing, but I believe it will have backwards compatibility, and I believe that the next Zelda game, whatever they end up calling it, is going to release on your Switch right now and the next thing, just like Breath of the Wild did before it in March 2017. 6 years is the longest bloated development for a main Zelda game we've ever seen. There has never been as long of a gap as we're about to get between Zelda titles. And to me, that's telling. One, I think this game is going to be bigger than anybody believes it to be. It was sort of initially presented as a sequel, utilizing a lot of the same world, but I think Aonuma's comments today about an expansive world beyond the ground and skies shows that this will be more. And perhaps some of the development slowdown is pushing this thing to run on the next thing. And both Bloomberg and Nate Drake have asserted that developers had these systems, these dev kits, since late 2020, meaning they would have had all of 2021 and all of 2022 and some of 2023 and 2020 to prepare and get ready for the next gen. To have a 4K Nintendo product ready to perform whatever IP and products that company and that developer are ready to put out. Now, you could believe this is all hogwash and Nintendo will stick with the current Switch for a decade, but remember, Nintendo is the master of messing things with PR speak. All right, they like to manipulate a little bit and say, no, we have no plans, and then boom, there's a new console. No, we're not, we would never do, focus on here while they're really working over here. They do it a lot. Is it lying? Not really. Is it mischievous? Kind of. Is it PR and companies and products and competition? Yes. I think that the reason The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is delayed is to support not only some more development, but mostly to support the new system that Nintendo will be launching in early 2023. We're about to have a banger year with or without Zelda. It's missing one game, but I think we'll still add something along the way. And then, hey, let's go. It doesn't mean that the Switch stops, especially if the system is able to play games across. If they opt to go for, hey, it's just improved on Switch 4K, then you're totally fine. If some games are exclusive and some aren't, that works too. If the eShop still supports both, but it's just some main cartridge-based titles that only work on Switch 4K, however it works, they still can keep the Switch in existence and supported and working for a decade. But I think we all can agree that the graphical power of the Switch, it's getting a bit out of style. We're hopeful that AMD's FSR technology, seen in Life is Strange True Colors and Nintendo Switch Sports and probably Xenoblade Chronicles 3, can push things a bit, but maybe it can't push things enough. And maybe it truly is time to get the new Switch that we were probably intended to get last year and got the OLED, and now because of the shortage, it can't come out in 2022, and it's coming out in 2023. The targeting 2022 you heard from Aonuma last year about Zelda was actually about the new console, and actually about chips, and when the production line would be able to perform at the quantity and amount Nintendo needs it to perform. Consider that and let me know what you think, because I think we're on the right track here. Still have to wait for Zelda, But if it means we get another Switch and a new one with 4K capabilities, and we can play the brand new Breath of the Wild with a bigger world than ever before, in the best graphical fidelity Nintendo has ever offered, maybe the wait's worth it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all a lot. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Thanks again for watching. SwitchForce, out.